What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we'll be taking a look over here at the Bitcoin price chart, along with the XRP price chart and the altcoin market. As we enter into a new week, we had a little bit more price action develop over here in the crypto market, and for Bitcoin, as it set a new low there to $103.5 thousand Friday morning. Since then, we've seen a little bit of a bounce here on Bitcoin back to $111,000. Things like XRP have experienced a little bit of a bounce from these lows. I had pointed to this volume over here on Friday over there on X, highlighting that the range has come all the way back down again and prices are becoming more interesting to see if we are reaching the downside range extreme. There's no reversal signs yet, but reaching areas of interest to look for signs to emerge. Quoting how I had the opportunity there on October 10th to grab some of that liquidation and buy it, but then a couple of days later, I had sold those entries anticipating that this range would still continue. But there on Friday, prices were becoming more interesting as we had now gone ahead and swept these lows. And as I highlighted in this thread, like we saw with Bitcoin a couple of weeks ago, we saw aggressive selling as it reached a support. Then it was followed with strong buying. There isn't the evidence of strong buying yet, but as things like XRP reach areas of interest, we see the same capitulative selling volume. We'll see that Friday morning, we had noticed there was a lot of extreme selling, and extreme is relative, but we noticed that was different from what we had seen in the days prior, considering we had already swept the lows over in here and then seeing these types of markers start to show up, that it seemed probable for some type of bounce or reversal, but of course in a ranging context. But the complications of where we are right now are certainly not going to diminish, I don't think. I had mentioned this on Monday's video of last week that I could look ahead and already see where it's going to be really difficult if this range were to continue. And so I'll kind of play that clip right here. Talking about a sweep of these lows and where we would be at in the event that we got to where we are like today. And with the way ranges behave, it could end up being weeks. And the best messaging I can give here in this couple of days moment is that I can kind of see what it's going to be like for the channel in the event that, we kind of start pulling back from right here and what that challenge is going to be right now. And that's why I say decisions could be coming up quickly, right? Like locking in, having conviction, what are you doing, right? I'm never going to tell you what to do, but it seems like we're at that moment, because in the event that this does end up becoming a resistance in here, well, we could see that things could just end up pulling back and down and never come back up to hit higher. Whereas alternatively, we could produce that exact same type of pullback and pull back up in here and get higher. And then there's better opportunities later, right? And there won't be a way to know that in here. There just won't be a way to know. This thing could pull back down in here, and then we're all waiting and waiting. And will we get a push back up higher, or will it peter out down in here? We won't know. And so I welcome you to that moment where we have gone ahead and sweep the range low. We've bounced back up, as you would expect in here, sweeping the lows. And now, how much juice is this thing going to have to push back up in here? And so I think we'll probably have to see more development happen over here on Bitcoin to see whether or not Bitcoin's going to end up going into a full retrace happening in here, right? I think for the way the indicators look, right? I don't want to come on here and shatter people's dreams. That's not the things that I come on here to do. I'm not here to play a character. I'm not here to say I'm the next bad bear or anything like that. It's just to present the data to you and show it to you through the realistic light and show why it's real difficult right now to sit here and say there's all these confluences pointing to the upside when we have these other overhangs happening at the same time. But obviously what you don't want happening in here is for this to just be, one of these things occurring right in here, which it seems reasonable that it could be. But obviously the thing that would probably be the best case scenario right now, outside of course, what everybody wants for it to go shooting into new all-time highs, is if we can actually get some type of retrace to happen in here, making this moment be more like this kind of distribution where we do these things and then head into a retrace and, look for altcoins to do something majestic during that moment. I will say though that on the bigger time frames, our context is not the same as this. our context really matches much more of us being like right in here with the indicators and the behavior of the market on things I've shown, like with Hedera hash graph, giving the examples of how it was like our real bull market in the crypto market back in 2021 happened there in like March, April, and May. And it would have to imply that our real bull market in crypto happened again after the election in November, December, January, and that everything that has happened in here is similarly to like what happened in October and November of 2021, where Bitcoin still goes on to set a new high like this, yet the vast majority of the altcoin market does not. We still see a couple do this, like XRP, but this is the story of most of the market, like I showed in my last video that I published, like Chainlink and AVAX, Cardano, Solana, etc. Even for XRP holders, right? Stellar Lumens, right? A popular coin in shared communities. So you have this overhang here of this dynamic of saying, is this still just like the 2021 bull market, where all the excitement happened in the post-election rally and then nothing transpired into that second rally, right? Right now, the way the indicators look, it would support that idea that we are somewhere like right here for Bitcoin. When we look at it through the lens of the indicators, that we have that same behavior here, these bearish divergences on the weekly time frame in here. Very clear and obvious down here on the moving average convergence divergence, or MACD, and that this thing, obviously is rolled over and pointing straight down. This typically isn't what we're doing before prices rip to the upside. This is typically what you're doing when things are heading in the opposite direction. But the point I was trying to make earlier is saying, obviously, if you're hoping for something big, I think right now in the current context, obviously, you'd be looking for there to be something to happen with that Bitcoin dominance into some type of retracement. I just can't guarantee with any level of confidence on whether or not I believe that or not. I think the challenge we're in right now is going to be just how much of a ricochet are we going to get here out of this move that we're in right now? I think it's even reasonable you could visit the lows again, where you could just kind of like slam them again and then do that. But the thing to remember is that this is a ranging context. So people are really looking for trending behavior to happen. Tell me which way it's going to go. And I've used this term many times in the past, that ranges by design are chaotic, right? They're meant to psychologically annihilate you. At the bottom of the ranges, you're going to be pessimistic. At the top of the ranges, you're going to be really optimistic. And it's meant to be a washing machine. But, when I look at the context of it on the short-term time frame and trying to guess, is this thing going to retrace in here? Or is this thing going to pull back down in here and do these types of things where it's going to happen really quickly? I can tell you at this point, it's kind of like your guess is as good as mine. When we were looking back a couple of weeks ago, we were flashing those things of where like, hey, when these exact things happen, like they typically precede liquidation events happening, right? Here's 4 out of 5 times where it happened. And like right when these things occurred is right when liquidations happen. I don't have any like signals that I'm looking at right now that are implying like something has to happen today like we were having a couple of weeks ago. It's more of just operating in a ranging context right now and trying to determine how much of a ricochet are we going to get on this thing. And it may not, like the signal may not come until like the very last second where it's like, oh wait, there was the confluence, boom, 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 here we talk all about it, like that's it, done. It could happen like that, or it could just completely show up and be a wrong footing. Like I think if I had to create like a bull thesis on altcoins, right? And I know that's what people want to hear, and they want to hear it for Bitcoin too. I can't create one on Bitcoin. It's like impossible for me at this point. But if I had to create one on like altcoins, it'd be obviously that you'd probably be hoping for that type of environment to happen. And like that would be the best chance, right? Everything deviates away from all this 2021 behavior and it starts something different and new. But it of course happens from a 702 retracement happening here, which would imply, yeah, there's still probably going to be more crashing to happen in here. And then we all pay attention to what happens to the market right in here. That's a very speculative guess. I've highlighted that many times over the past year that, if nothing transpires, maybe there. But to put like a level of confidence on that, I couldn't put any. But it's just something where if it occurred, it just wouldn't surprise me. It'd be like, ha, there it was. But I think like if I had to just go based on indicators, just based on price structure and how the market is reacting right now, I think we're just kind of stuck in this environment here right now. And like I said, looking out ahead, once we would get here, that I wouldn't have an answer for you. And so I come here to tell you, I don't have an answer for you. It's playing out how I thought it might play out. It's playing out how on the 12th, I was like, I'm going to get out of these positions. I'm going to wait for the market to pull back. The market did pull back. Now we're in the situation of how big is this going to get? to try to bring the bulls back in. And so that's one thing too, is I don't think we've reached prices where it seems like bulls are like sucked back in yet, where they're claiming victory, right? And I think that's a hallmark of bear markets to keep an eye out for, is that if prices do get back up in here into like the 280s or the 270s, to be keeping an eye out for if it becomes like a mockery, if it becomes socially acceptable to become mockery. Bull market's back. Those are classic signs of bear markets, where you kind of suck all the bulls back in, they get all their renewed confidence back on some type of lower high, and then, it just continues rolling over like that. And my job is not to come on here and be a bear. My job is not to come on here and scare you. I try to treat this to say, hey, look, here's things that we've seen. Here's how behavior tends to happen. Here's things to keep an eye out for. And I don't mind coming on here and being super mega bull when our indicators are curling to the upside, or we're coming off lows and we're starting to transpire upwards. But just, knowing that we've had these types of environments before, and when these types of environments happened, we know how these have ended up playing out in here. And this was the end case, right? And so being in something like that, heading down like that, we can just kind of see where we're at, right? And if you caught it last week, of course, we're talking about Wyckoff distribution over here on the altcoin market. We're looking over here at others, and we can essentially like pinpoint every single little phase, from preliminary supply to buying climaxes, automatic rally, secondary test, sign of weakness in phase B, up thrust after distribution, last point of supply, sign of weakness, last point of supply. And just how even this rally right here, this last point of supply, goes back to hit this automatic rally and still stays beneath the support level after the up thrust and up thrust after distribution. And of course, we could see that over here, right? In our last point of supply, it comes over here to where the automatic rally is, and still remains right here underneath the support between the up thrust and up thrust after distribution. And so being where we are currently right now, to come down and set a new low, still working on that sign of weakness and pushing its way back up. Obviously the first step you probably want to just see, and it still doesn't mean a whole lot, but like even just getting above this last point of supply, at least offer some type of glimmer of hope to be able to exceed the support level turned into a resistance of last point of supply where the automatic rally took place. But just to kind of see that, right? And again, like I don't enjoy coming on here and like delivering the bad news, but just showing you these things, right? We have the underlying indicators. We have the price behavior happening in here. We have the cycle levels where we thought a Bitcoin top would come in here. And then now it's like the range is pulled back down to the downside. We're trying to see, can we get a push back up a little bit higher, or where's this thing going to stall out at? And like I even said in this video when presenting that idea, that we would pull back down in here, not really knowing, right? Will it get enough juice to get up in here? Will it stall out somewhere in here? Sorry, guys, like right here, this is the challenge. This is where we're at. And again, I'll play that for you, that like the idea was we pull down here, and this is how confusing it would get here in this exact moment. So alternatively, we could produce that exact same type of pullback and pull back up in here and get higher. And then there's better opportunities later, right? And there won't be a way to know that in here. There just won't be a way to know. This thing could pull back down in here, and then we're all waiting. And will we get a push back up higher, or will it peter out down in here? We won't know. And there'll be people asking me, right? So do you still think it's going to do that? I won't know. I'll be monitoring that in that moment, but we won't have an answer on whether or not that's going to be the moment where it's going to go push for a real true underside back test or not. And so that indecision, that indecisiveness is what I was saying exactly last week. I was like, I can kind of look ahead to what it's going to be like in the event that we do pull down in here like this, that then it's going to be this, we won't know. And people will be asking me, do you still think it's going to be like, I don't know. And we're here right now. Like, obviously the bullish things you want to see is of course, a clear of 310 and a clear of 320. Now, those are not typically things that would happen in an actual bear market, and certainly not getting as high as $3.40. So if, something happens where the price fired all the way up in here, we would be talking about this in a very different light. We would start looking at it through the lens of like, hey, this is a very fantastic reaction that we saw off of these lows that are painting a different picture. But while we're in the current context with our indicators looking like this, and even having this weekly divergence come down here and go below the June and the March lows in here, right? We've already got this thing dipping down in here below there, along with this price behavior. I think I would just be coming on here creating hopium to try to say that's what's going to happen next, that it is going to go shooting up there. I have to really present it from, hey, look, these are the things that the indicators are showing. This is the price structure behavior. This is the ranging behavior. The price action we've seen over the last week is very common in ranges after we actually see major liquidation breakdowns happen. And we even saw things like that happen back here, back when we had the major liquidation back in February, right? There's a big reaction. Prices pull back down low. We go back to the top of this range. We even nip above it, right? Creates a lot of optimism going back above the top of that range, and then it rolls over and gets stuck down there for a long time, right? And so these are things that I just have to constantly keep in my mind, right? Like price behavior is broken down. The bearish divergences are there. We just had a major liquidation. How do prices typically behave after major liquidations? And quite often we see an immediate reaction happen. Prices will pull back down. They'll try to go back to the top of the range a second time, but we know there's circumstances where it can't quite reach it or it can reach above it. But that this is very common to happen afterwards, right? And so what we obviously have to see is we have to see something deviate. You would have to see something break above to create some type of bullish structure amongst it all. And those lines in the sand of where those start to happen are really there, 310, 320, 340, 340. I mean, you got me completely on board. You start getting me pretty excited, 310 and 320. But I'm very well aware that we can do these types of things in these ranges. And that's what I've been trying to present in here, is that we can do this type of stuff and it not mean anything. So that's where we are today. It's like we've already kind of pulled back in here. We'll see if it has to double bottom again, and we'll see if it has enough juice to give a nice ricochet. And of course, upon that ricochet, keeping an eye out for how people are behaving. What's the market sentiment like? Is it a mockery? Does price start exceeding levels that you otherwise wouldn't expect them to do? Right, there'll be a lot to look at. But in the current form of where we're at right now, I feel like I'm having to try to kind of make content to cover each particular thing, rather than looking at it from just a bigger context, right? And like, are we trying to make a bunch of content right now in a long video of a moment where we're just like this right now? And we very well could be. And are we trying to make a video and content and discussing all about a moment where we're just kind of like right here? And we very well could be. I don't want to make content on this channel that is just where I come on here every day and tell you Doomtown. It's not what I want to do. It's not like fun for me. But I'm also in a position where I look at a lot of the indicators and price structure behavior to where it's hard to come on here and tell you bull every day. So I think even for me, like in my position, like just speaking to you as a human, I'm in a kind of complex situation right now on content creation, because, the typical content creation formula is that, we need to come on here and we need to ignore everything negative and just keep pumping out hope and optimism and hopium and here's the bright side and dismiss anything negative. Like that's your typical content. I'm just not comfortable doing that in this environment. And so there's a lot of inner soul searching going on right now on how do I make content on here where I'm not coming on here every day and like shattering people's dreams, but just kind of painting the picture realistic. And so that's the best I can do for you right now, is just kind of paint it realistic. Those larger time frame indicators all sit there. This still seems like a ranging context. I'm not sure how high things like XRP are going to get in a ranging context. Will it peter out below 270? Will it hit as high like 285, 287, something like that? I very well could. But no matter what kind of short-term price action we see happen in here, we're still overwhelmed by the larger time frame behavior. And so we're trying to guess how are little ricochets and little bounces going to happen in here while we're still being dominated by the larger time frame things, like what's happening over here on the altcoin market, where this thing has now just flipped. We don't do these types of things right here and then typically just recover right away, right? Like we can go back and look at these things of how they've happened in the market. And so that's dominating us right now. So there has to be some type of like really big surprise that shows up in here. Otherwise, we are just kind of trapped by that larger time frame price behavior and indicator behavior until proven otherwise. And of course, the same thing goes for Bitcoin. So we'll see if we get anything new to talk about this week. Either some type of surprise reactions, or we hit certain retracement levels, or certain resistance levels, or we break those. But right now, I tried to kind of set the stage last Monday, of where we are today. And so the best I could do for you today is to reflect back on what was said on Monday, that I thought we would get to exactly where we actually are today, and that I felt confident that we would get to where we are today, but that once we got here, this is where it would get a little bit blurry. So now I need things to kind of play out a little bit, and then we'll have something to talk about to see how the reaction was. So I'll check in with you more this week once we have actual price development to kind of give a little bit of a picture. Till then, of course, we just kind of wait, and I'll see you guys in markets in the morning. I hope that you guys had a great weekend. I spent the weekend fishing. Now we're back in the saddle, and we'll see how things go. So All right, I'll check in with you guys this week. Of course, you can check out the newsletter that I write over here at blockchainbacker.substack.com. The last one diving into all the things about that liquidation that occurred, what it historically means for the market, what those confluences are of what historically happens in this market after we see that, talking about what the bulls need to kind of invalidate a lot of that stuff, and of course, that conflict we have over there with the Bitcoin dominance. It includes a 30-minute audio recording that I personally recorded in here. It's available over here at blockchainbacker.substack.com. There's a link in the description of all of my videos of the newsletter at blockchainbacker.substack.com, or you can just go to it directly. Otherwise, I'll check in with you guys soon, and I want to thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor, but if you ever need to pick me up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.